But a weird thing happened where it made my brain a lot clearer, like you were talking about. And this is going to sound insane, but it made me read faster.
Yeah.
So again, separate issue. I've given up reading now because it sent me crazy. But at
That's
the time,
actually true. He came in one day. He was like, "I'm giving up reading. Like, I'm giving up books." I'm like,
I was
that's
reading too much. Anyway, but I found that when I was running a lot,
we'll be driving. He won't read a stop sign. He's
problematic.
He's sworn off the whole deal. Hello and welcome to Silver Bullet. My name's Lewis Hobba.
my name's Michael Hing.
And on this podcast, we are searching for one quick fix that will solve all of our problems.
Yes.
And if you're listening, hopefully this quick fix will solve all of your problems too. Now, each week we have a wonderful guest on, a well-known person, and we find out what their silver bullet is. Now, their silver bullet doesn't always have to have worked for them.
Yes.
We just want to know stuff that they've tried. And he is, we're both excited about this guest, but I will say it's in your wheelhouse in a way that it is exciting you a lot.
Yes, I want you to take your mind back to the joy you felt as a child. The magic of creation that only a child can experience before they are thrust into the capitalist workforce that we all exist in now, and feel the obligation to create, not for your own joy, but to survive and get money.
Sure.
And think about the happiest times you were as a child creating. And I imagine it might have something to do with some little plastic bricks that are made by I want to say Norwegian company. I'm probably going to get that wrong. What do we think?
Danish.
Damn it. Oh, God. The Danes. We are so delighted today to have one of the most joyful people in Australian television on our podcast. Would you please welcome Ryan Brickman McNaught. Hello, Ryan. How's it going?
Thank you very much. I'm honoured to be here.
Yeah, really exciting. Obviously, Lego needs no introduction. It's huge. But you've always been a big Lego guy, obviously. But you are, and stop me if I'm getting this wrong, because I haven't, I'm not really in the world of Lego anymore. But you are Lego endorsed. You're one of the 21 Lego endorsed, I guess, Lego artists, builders.
Yeah, I'm what's called if you look at my business card, the job title is Lego Certified Professional, of which there's 21 of us around the world, and we all do very different things. And so I have a bit of a niche, a bit of a part of the world that I've managed to carve out. So I'm the only one in the Southern Hemisphere. Is my claim
Take that, Argentina.
Yeah. But my nearest colleague's in Singapore, and if he was 8 nautical miles further south, I wouldn't be able to claim it. So
You're like, never move.
Totally.
What were you doing for a crust in the dark ages?
I was the chief information officer of a media company, so quite high up in the IT world. Right. And one day I was summoned to the managing director's office, and we had a board meeting, and we had a meeting about the number of meetings we were having. And I knew look, the eye roll. You all know exactly what I'm talking about. I knew at that moment that I'm cooked.
Yeah, right.
It's time to go and flow. And then, of course, you have a discussion. You come home and you say to your wife and the bank manager and everybody, "I'm packing this in.
I'm all in on bricks."
Yeah, I'm all in on the little plastic bricks. So, of course, it's not as dramatic as that. But basically, I started doing interesting things with Lego bricks, and then more things grew and more things grew. And like all good businesses, started in my back shed and then grew and collected employees and went from there.
So you've had this incredible life of, in and out of, I guess, finding a passion, I guess the stresses of a corporate job as well. Now you're doing this like very public role where you're able to creatively express yourself, but also have a lot of pressure on yourself from the media and everything else.
You're in the it's the highest rating entertainment show in Australia. Lego Masters.
You can thank Hamish Blake for that. I kind of tag along.
Never heard of him.
I think he's riding your coattails, frankly. But I want to know now, like, what have you tried? What have you done to keep sane over the years? Like, what have you done? Because it's such different lives. That would have been a huge, tumultuous time in your life. What have you done over that time to maintain wellness or, I guess, keep your brain screwed on?
Yeah, so the trick was during pre-Lego, so as just a corporate person, doing your 14 hours a day in the office and those kind of things in the 2000s and having young kids and all of that kind of stuff, I pretty much let myself go physically. I would do long lunches, long dinners, travel a lot. I traveled a lot for work, not conducive to that kind of stuff. So my weight really ballooned out. And as you do, go to the GP, and as soon as I walked in the door, he's shaking his head. Hasn't even taken my
Very
temperature.
judgmental.
Hasn't even
Alright.
whatever. Old school doctor.
Yeah.
And he's like, all right, here's the chat.
Right.
So sit down and let's have the chat. And so I knew, he goes, look, you're not far off becoming a diabetic if you keep going the way you're going, right? I'm like,
Wow.
oh, okay, righto. I probably need to pay attention to what he's saying. And when you've got kids, you realise Dad needs to be around. There's nothing worse than that. So I knew I had to do something, and so I tried lots of things to try and start that process.
What kind of things are we talking about? What's like the wackiest thing you tried?
Oh, wacky. Well, I tried all the normal things first, right? Cycling. I used to competitively bike race as a kid, so I got back into that. Then you see the price tag on a bicycle nowadays, and you go, whoa, yeah, give that a miss.
Yeah.
Played a lot of cricket and that kind of stuff. And cricket.
Classic fitness cricket.
Yeah, classic fitness. A lot of elbow action.
Yeah,
right.
Unless you're like actually playing for Australia, club cricket is not where you find the hardest bodies in the nation.
No, definitely not. 100%. So tried all of those classics, and I'm a guy process driven, so I'm looking for the shortest, quickest, fastest, easiest method
I
possible.
relate to that. We love that.
Welcome to the podcast.
And my father-in-law ran marathons, and he said, why don't you give running a go? I'm like, dude, there's no way. Look at the temple. It ain't running.
Right.
So no. So then I tried all the gadgets, sign up to a gym, all of that kind of stuff. The fact that the gym is completely covered in mirrors is one of the most offensive things I found in my life. So I was like, that ain't happening either. Bought all the gear, the weights at home, all of that kind of stuff, zero motivation, all of that kind of stuff. But it wasn't until I started running a little bit that I found something. There was a little glimmer there.
Okay. So the silver bullet you've brought in today is...
My silver bullet is distance running.
Distance running.
Yeah. It was inevitable that this would come across our desk.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So let's talk through what that means to you. So you're saying distance running. What kind of distances are you talking about, and how often are you doing it?
Okay, so we're talking about marathons. There are, of course, much greater distances than marathons. Ultra marathons, 100Ks, 100 milers, all sorts of stuff. Intercontinental runs, there's all sorts of distances. I'm not at that level. I'm just talking about the marathon. Now, the reason I fell in
40Ks a marathon?
42.2 kilometres is the go. The reason that I fell in love with the marathon was obviously there was a little bit of a family connection. A good friend of mine is a great marathon runner as well. And my wife is a good marathon runner. So I kind of like, I've got no choice here. I'm last to the party.
Right.
So
and she was into marathons before you?
Yes, just ever so slightly before me.
Okay.
And she's much faster than me too.
Right,
So that
yeah,
helps
yeah.
a lot too. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So how did you get ready for your first marathon?
Right. So not that long ago, so 2016. So what's that, 7 years ago, thereabouts, the Melbourne Marathon. I thought I'd have to do hometown. Basically started a crash course. I did this thing, I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's called the Couch to 5K.
Yes.
It's basically a program which is getting people that have done no running at all as a way to get off their backside and run 5Ks. So I did that and found that, hey, I can actually do this. This is achievable. I do that. And the weight started to come off and it got easier and easier and better. So I basically started with that. And then my good friend who got me into it, as part of the process, he did a marathon plan for me.
Right.
And said, this is the training that you need to do over the next 16 weeks. And then it's race day. So, yeah. And of course, you read all the horror stories about marathon running.
Yeah.
The whole don't trust a fart, for example's sake, on
Yes.
marathon day.
Sure.
All of these sorts of things. So the
How
horror
are the
stories,
nipples first time round?
bloody.
Right.
Yeah, bloody nipples. You know what? If I'm ever going to start up a rock band, the Bloody Nipples is the name of my potential rock band.
People say that, and I can't. I honestly just can't fathom how just a top can rub your nipple so
chafing,
much
yeah.
that you get blood.
I think the very first marathon at Melbourne, there was a guy that he had his shirt cut out, right? So he
Right.
had the holes cut around.
Yeah.
It looks, quite bizarre. But
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, that's pretty weird. But by the end, let me tell you,
You were dreaming of a nipple hole.
Smart man. The longest run I'd done before my first marathon, the biggest run training run you do was about 32 in my 32 kilometres in my
You're
training
adding
plan.
10Ks.
And so
the
you're
first
adding
time.
10 Ks. Basically, if you can do 32 kilometres, you can definitely definitely do a marathon. That's kind of the
That's
and the training benefit is marginal going over 32 kilometers. So that's sort of the science that sits behind it.
Okay. Wow.
But my nipples were used to 32 kilometers, not 42 kilometers.
You needed to just train 32 Ks and then sit there for like 20 minutes going like this just to get
the high beam out. Yep.
Okay, so you've now been running for a couple of years. What are the major benefits you see to distance running?
So my role, my profession or a job is I have to be very patient. You know, these things that I make out of Lego take potentially thousands of hours, like a long time.
They're millions of pieces.
Literally millions of pieces in some instances. And so the problems that I come across are sometimes very difficult for your brain to compute and calculate. So sometimes I'll go to bed, finish the day, whatever, with a problem that I just don't know how to solve. And when I'm running and your mind is clear of everything except for the pain that your body's going through, those answers come to you like straight away, almost immediately. And it's a thing whereby your brain conditions itself to shut out whatever pain it's going through and think about something else.
So there's the weight loss and the physical fitness and all that stuff that you, I guess, got into it for, but now you're finding a mental clarity on the track.
Yeah, so to speak. And probably the biggest thing I didn't know until after I ran my first marathon. So I'll just set a bit of a scene for you. So I've run for 5 hours around the suburbs of Melbourne. Fantastic. Coming back, you finish at the MCG, okay? Right? And you do a lap of the MCG before you cross the finish line. So I felt like I was playing on grand final day. I mean, I'm an emotional guy, but I was bawling my eyes out. Your body's shut down. It's cactus, all those kind of bits and pieces. I have never had an endorphin rush or high like what it was crossing that finish. My whole bottom of my feet, all of it, the whole bottom of my foot was a giant blister. My nipples were bleeding, the whole lot, right? But I could feel none of that. All I felt was this high, this immense high.
Wow.
And so that became a thing.
Huh.
Like an addict.
Yeah, right. Because now that you've done it, like obviously as someone who has slightly an addictive personality, what does it take you to chase that feeling again? Like how far do you have to run to get the same kind of taste?
It's not about, for me, and everybody's different, of course, you know, but for me personally, it's not about the distance. That's not the challenge. It's about the conditions. It's about the where, the how you get there. And this is really interesting because you're running with thousands of people at times. Sometimes you're running on your own. So they're very different. You know, the crowd can really G you up. Like in the New York Marathon, every mile there's a band playing. And depending where you are in New York, it's different types of music. Like we're running through the Jewish community and they're singing Jewish hymn songs and stuff. We're running through Harlem, there's a rap band. There's like all this. Okay. So there's all that kind of hype and energy that you get, and other times you are slogging it out literally on your own with no one in sight, and so they're very very different to each other.
Wow.
So where are the most interesting places you've run? How many marathons have you done? What have you just gone rogue on a big run?
So I've done 15 marathons now.
Wow.
And I've got 4 to go before retirement. The body's the knees in particular are shot to pieces.
Oh.
So I've got 4 left. But the goal is to run a marathon on every continent. Okay.
So there's one immediate one that I'm thinking might be difficult.
Antarctica.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a couple a year that happen in Antarctica.
No
Antarctic
way.
Marathon.
Yes, there is.
A couple a year.
Yes, there's 2 a year. COVID was very difficult for that, obviously, when the world sort of shut down. That was difficult. And the one in Africa we're going to do is actually in a game park. And
there's like you're running with the lions chasing you.
Yes, indeed. And you have to run as a group, obviously as a pack, where the ranger will be behind you and the whole all of that kind of stuff. So they're the kinds of marathons.
It's Jurassic Park. You're putting yourself in Jurassic Park.
100%. I want to be Sam Neill though. As long as I'm Sam Neill, we're good.
So you've got Africa and Antarctica to go, but you've done obviously New York. That's in North America. What was your South America like?
We did the Falkland Islands. Off the coast of Argentina.
Yep. Okay.
And so about the only way to get to the Falkland Islands, there's one flight a week. Okay, so basically you fly there and you're there for a week no matter what. So to get there from Australia is quite difficult. You kind of have to go through the South America and Buenos Aires and all the rest. So we got there and the run was the next day. There's about 60 people do it. of which maybe 30 or 40 are not from the Falkland Islands. The
Right,
vast
okay.
majority are military personnel,
Right.
like British pilots, or because they're based there. That's their
Gotcha.
activity. But it is one of the windiest places on Earth. There's like 3 trees on the whole island, and they've actually grown. They've grown on like a 45-degree angle.
Right.
And so we're like, and you basically just run in this like desolate. It's like a movie set. It's kind of bizarre. Anyway, so we did that. That
Was it windy when you were doing it? Did you get a headwind?
at times it was a bit of a loop back, kind of a bit of a funny course. So you had a tailwind,
both.
sometimes you had a whatever the case happens to be. But I ran that one with my wife, so we ran together. So we were buddies.
Were you like tailing each other?
Drafting?
Absolutely.
Were you trying to draft?
100%. You take everything you get.
Smart.
And things like that. Like we ran next to minefields. Like there's active minefields and stuff left over from the war and stuff. So a few stops for happy snaps.
So I can see why for you running a marathon is as much about the location and the event as it is the actual physical distance.
For sure, 100%. And again, that endorphin rush is different every single time based on the challenges you have to get to. But speaking of unusual marathons, I have brought some props in with me.
Oh, we love
and
props.
I will
Hello.
try and describe them. So
Please.
I've done a couple of weird marathons, if Falkland Islands wasn't enough for you.
Yeah.
But the weirdest one that we did was in Pyongyang, North Korea.
Whoa!
What?
Yes, North Korea. So I bought the medal in. Here you go. You can share the medal around.
No way.
That's the medal from all the way from North Korea. Don't bite it; it could be made of chocolate. Is kind of our. It's like all things are
or
fake.
poison.
This
Yep.
says Pyongyang DPRK on the back.
Yep.
Choreo. There's like almost like an Olympic style. You know how for each Olympic sport there's like a figurine that'll like show the sport. There's almost like an Olympic style figurine on the front. There's I think what looks to be like a marathon track, and also I'm guessing some sort of North Korean palace. There's some Korean text on it. It does look very official.
Oh, look.
Yeah.
Oh
so
my God.
So what do you mean you ran a marathon in North Korea?
I was fortunate. My parents were both in the travel industry. So growing up, my dad worked for the Victorian Government Tourism Bureau. And so he got to travel to lots of places to get tourists to come to Victoria. And one of the big things that he always spoke about was he went to Russia in the 80s.
Right.
Back when they're full-on Cold War and the Iron Curtain as part of a diplomatic thing. And Dad just raved about it. Said it was one of the greatest things he ever did. And so I'm like, I never got a chance to go before the Iron Curtain fell. So I'd love to go somewhere
Where it's still
like that.
wow.
And so we did some research, and as Australians, and my wife's Canadian, we are allowed to travel to North Korea.
Are we? I would have thought that's illegal.
Only Americans are not allowed to go to
Right.
North Korea.
I imagine you'd be fairly tailed or fairly observed.
I'll go through that in a
Okay,
second.
yeah,
So,
sorry, I won't get ahead of it.
Basically, you fly to Beijing, you go to China first, that's where the consulate is, and you're doing a day, basically a course on what to do, what not to do. So it's a whole day induction of your OH&S of North Korea, what not to do,
You get
what
your
to
swipe
do.
pass.
Totally, all of that
Get
kind
your
of stuff. Yeah, well, they take your passport and they disappear for a day, which is kind of nerve-wracking.
That's terrifying.
yeah.
This is the Chinese government doing it, or the North Korean government?
This is the North Korean
At the
government
consulate
at the
there.
consulate. And so basically they vet you, do
Right.
their research on you, and all of those kind of bits and pieces. And
Were you worried? You were like, oh my goodness, they're going to find some stuff about like my capitalist past.
Can
or
you
well,
something.
fortunately, nothing to hide. Luckily,
Yeah,
so I'm not.
imagine if they were like, as a spy, what a great cover. A lifetime of like Lego building.
Yeah, sure. Well, my wife, ironically, works for a big American multinational. Right?
okay.
So she was
right,
a bit more.
okay.
She was a bit more
Classic spy territory.
classic spy territory sort of thing.
Mm.
So anyway, so basically they do that. They tell you what you can and can't do. And so next day, fly to Pyongyang. So there's one flight a day into Pyongyang on this aeroplane, which came from just after the Second World War, this big Russian illusion
biplane.
thing. It was awesome, one of the greatest things ever. And they have the most amazing airport. Like it is, think beautiful, modern marble, all of that kind of stuff for like one flight a week sort of stuff. That kind of,
Wow, okay.
and very opulent, very whatever. But it's like that's what it looks like until you get up close.
Right.
And it's all like a movie prop.
Interesting.
Like
You'd
the
push
rooms
over
that
the
you're
walls.
the rooms that you're in look amazing, but the second you see a door open behind the scenes, it's all dodgy, rusting, whatever.
Right, okay.
And so we get there and basically we're on a guided tour. Okay, of which there's sort of 50 of us from all around the world. A lot of Brits, a lot of Scandinavians, Canadians,
no Americans,
Aussies.
obviously.
Obviously no Americans, funnily enough. And they take you to your hotel, which is on an island in Pyongyang's basically in the middle of the river. You can go anywhere you like on the island. If you go off the island, you have to have someone with you. So basically, you have a minder.
Okay. So it's very controlled. It's very
and
government approved.
Totally, all of that kind of stuff. Now, the run was on the Sunday. We got there on the Friday. And then we did things like went on a tour to the DMZ. I'd been to
Far out, yes.
But here's the thing. So I'd been from South Korea to the border, and they don't let you get within like 5 kilometers of the thing. It's like nowhere near it.
Yeah.
The north, I've got like, I'm doing Homer with my foot on the line going, whoop, whoop, in, out, all of that kind of stuff. They let you actually right there where the blue huts are and the whole, it was ace. Anyway.
That's crazy.
It's crazy.
I guess there's pretty low grade OH&S in North Korea in general.
Yeah. Like the fact that you can't see it, but there's probably maybe 500 weapons pointing at me at the time. Maybe you can't see it. Doesn't matter then.
Yeah.
Right? You know?
It's like, is that the Brickman
Yeah,
from Lego Masters?
So it's pretty wild. And of course, the thing that we found very confronting is, I mean, let's be honest, they are a dictatorship.
Yes.
They kill millions of innocent people. So we're very mindful of the fact that, you know, this is really bad. You know, this is sad. It's terrible.
Yes.
And here we are being very opulent as tourists. So, you know, there was just a little bit of stuff like that.
Yes.
Anyway, cut a long story short, we did the marathon, and they have their Olympic stadium in question, because they've never had the Olympics, of course. But and basically it holds about 70,000 people. It was run on the Sunday, and Sunday nobody works on Sunday. Sunday is their day of rest and family and all the rest. And they put on a soccer match. So while we were off running the marathon around Pyongyang, to keep the crowd entertained, they had a couple of soccer games. Because, you know, marathon for me takes like 4.5, 5 hours. Some people are faster or whatever. Anyway, so Locomotive played Farmers and Army played Air Force. They were
so it's by profession.
Yeah, well,
Wow.
let's use the term loosely profession,
right.
but
Okay.
yeah, sort of thing. Anyway, what I found funny was their uniforms were all the same. So I couldn't tell who was passing to who or anything like that.
So they don't understand the nature of competition.
Well,
Totally.
everyone's playing for the same team, which is the team of the glorious leader, Lewis.
Oh, of
obviously.
course.
But
Sorry, yeah.
Speaking of competition, so you know, doing these marathons around the world, I've seen a few unscrupulous marathon activities.
Really?
And even had the opportunity to cheat, but you're only cheating yourself. So there's, you know, I'm not in the
Cheating
Olympics.
yourself out of an endorphin rush.
Well, correct. That's right. And put an asterisk next to your name.
Because there's been a few even recently of
People
people
jumping
like
in
hopping
cars
in
and-
taxis
Totally.
and stuff.
Yeah, we've seen, like the London one, we saw a guy get out of the tube station.
No.
Yeah, it's like, awesome, mate. Get on your champ.
Wow.
Yeah. But anyway, basically they're athletes. And so, for example, so if you go around a roundabout, you go the long way around a roundabout to turn left, you know, you sort of go around the roundabout or right, you know, they just cut the corner and stuff like this.
Right, okay.
And the winner of the marathon, so the world's fastest marathon is Eliud Kipchoge, and he does that just on 2 hours is sort of his world record. Okay.
2 hours to do 42 Ks.
Yes. And so the North Koreans did it in 1 hour, 37 minutes.
Right.
That feels... I mean, maybe it's a secret
look-
hotbed of the greatest athletes of all time.
Look,
we
seen-
know the glorious leader can hit a lot of hole-in-ones.
Totally, 18 in a row.
That's right.
18 in a row.
One of the first to do it.
I've
Totally.
seen a lot of pictures of, not a lot, but I've seen occasional pictures of shirtless North Koreans. You know how they do those demonstrations?
Yes.
And they're sort of running along and then they rip their shirts off and you're like, these guys are pretty jacked. But
Yeah.
I think that when you think about, like marathon runners, the best of them, they're very skinny.
Tiny.
And I
Yeah.
think that a lot of these jacked North Korean military service people or whoever, I think might not be suited to the marathon running. I don't know. 1:36 though, pretty good time.
Well, what even made it more amazing, so we got a chance to, obviously, when you're in North Korea, we've got to get something to say we've been there. And we could buy official North Korean tracksuits.
Ah.
They are the most flammable things you have ever seen in your life. Like the friction alone, they would have burst into flames doing a marathon. So I'm not sure how they did it, to be honest. We're kind of
Well,
baffled.
that's your worst nightmare. Hing hates anything that
Yeah.
creates static electricity.
Anything staticky,
got a
anything.
phobia of
yeah.
it.
Horrendous.
Yeah. Well, look, I could talk to you all day about your experience marathon running, but this podcast is one in which we have to try it out as well. And obviously, Lewis and I didn't have time to run a marathon, but you gracefully said that we could do a 5K run just to get a taste of distance running. So we did that this morning. Separately, we had a crack. And I got to say, I've run in the past. I've been fitter in the past than I am now. So I guess I haven't done any outdoor running since COVID, I would say.
Okay.
So
And you were doing it during COVID, or
yeah, I would occasionally. I would go
you
for.
haven't done it before then?
I would. I did a lot of running, maybe like 9 years ago, something like that.
What are we talking? Distance, sprinting, middle distance?
I would do like maybe once a week. I'd do 8Ks or something,
Okay.
and then I'd do little runs here and there in between there. But it was just sort of like, yeah, it was. I was trying to get fit, and I was like running a lot.
You were doing it to get fit? That was a specific purpose?
Yeah, or just like, well, it started that way, but a weird thing happened where it made my brain a lot clearer, like you were talking about. And this is going to sound insane, but it made me read faster.
Yeah.
So again, separate issue. I've given up reading now because it sent me crazy. But at
That's
the time,
actually true. He came in one day. He was like, "I'm giving up reading. Like, I'm giving up books." I'm like,
I was
that's
reading too much. Anyway, but I found that when I was running a lot,
we'll be driving. He won't read a stop sign. He's
problematic.
He's
Yeah,
sworn off
it's
the
really
whole
bad.
deal.
But sometimes people will give me books. I'm like, sorry, no, I can't. But I found myself when I was running and was really fit, or fitter than I am now. I was reading really quickly as well. So I'd do a big run, and then I'd come home, and then I'd be like smashing through pages. So I've noticed that, and I also know that because I do stand-up comedy at night, if I go for maybe a 2-kilometer run before I do stand-up, for some reason I will crush that gig.
Wow.
And I don't know if it's just the relaxation, it's also focusing the mind, all that kind of stuff. It's totally true. But I haven't, since COVID, I've only really been doing treadmill running, which is not the same.
Huh?
So I do, basically at the end of a workout, maybe 3 times a week, ideally 3 times a week, I do an hour of like pretty hard run. I do a kilometer of pretty hard running and then a kilometer of like cool down walking,
awesome.
right?
Yeah.
So the idea of having to run 5Ks just on the roads in Melbourne I was a bit like, oh no, I don't have the right asthma puffers for this. Like, but okay, this is gonna go away and then gonna come back. So this morning we had to move hotel rooms, and I had an absolute dog's breakfast of a morning. I had such a terrible morning, for one specific reason. So when you check into a hotel and they ask for $100 or whatever bond to make sure you don't trash the place, or
Except in North Korea, you get in for free.
yeah, right, okay.
Yeah.
I gave them my card and they took $100, but they also charged me a surcharge of $1.60 or something.
Right.
So they charged me $101.60 because I paid with a credit card, which they asked me to do, right? Because you can only pay with a credit card.
Yeah.
This morning when I was checking out, they refunded me just the $100
Oh,
Okay.
and didn't refund the surcharge.
that's a scam.
Right?
Okay.
And I said and obviously it's $1.60.
Sure.
Who cares? I care.
Okay,
It's
here
the
we go.
principle of it, right?
Uh-huh.
That if I'm giving you a bond, you should refund the bond in total from what I paid. I don't want to need to be paying your FPOS provider or something. That's your cost,
Yeah.
But obviously,
If they won't take $100 in cash.
and they won't.
No, of
and
course
they
they
won't. And I have $100 in cash. And I was offering to it, and the lady said no. Anyway,
Yeah.
so I'm checking out now, and I look at the thing. I look at the receipt from the refund, and it's $100, not $101.60.
Yeah.
And I said to her, "This isn't a big deal. I know it's just $1.60, but this is less than what I paid."
Yeah.
And she was like, "Oh yeah, that's the surcharge." And I was like, "Oh, I know. Yeah, I get that. But like, because it's the surcharge, you should probably refund the surcharge because you're refunding me." She goes, "It doesn't work like that." And so, Novotel Collins Street, I'll call you out. I was like, that can't be right. She's like, "Well, we don't want to absorb the cost of the escrow." I'm like, that's your business.
Yeah.
I offered you cash, you wouldn't take it. Anyway, obviously, it was like, I can't actually let this go. I can't actually fight this because that would be insane. It's $1.60, Michael.
Yeah.
You need to walk out.
Yeah.
So I said, "Thank you for the stay," and I left. And
Did you take like a bun or something from the
yeah,
all you
should
can
have
eat breakfast on the way?
should have
Did you
stolen a
like-
pair of some slippers. I did.
Yeah.
And obviously, it's $1.60. Who cares? But it's the principle of it for some reason, and it just like sent me insane.
Uh-huh.
Then, as I'm walking here to work, I get another charge on my phone that I see, and I've been charged a surcharge for the refund.
Oh,
fair income.
So I'm being charged I'm like, what are you? Oh, this is you're gonna sting me twice. This puts me into maybe the worst mood I've been in for a year. Like, I don't know why, but for some reason that just like I'm like fuming. And obviously, it's just it's $2.60.
Nah, but
Who
it's
cares?
justice. It's not about
yeah, exactly.
It's
and obviously,
justice. And
what-
you know what? At the moment, it's a cost of living crisis. And we're all every day we're getting some.
That's half a coffee, mate. That's
Yeah,
half a
yeah.
coffee.
We're
you know?
getting some news story about how Woolworths has made $2 billion
Oh.
or Qantas has made $2 billion. And you're like, you're jacking up prices?
They're
the
stinging
whole
me on
thing.
both ends.
Yeah.
And
yeah, of course.
And obviously, it doesn't matter. And I don't mean to brag. I can afford $2.60. But at the same time, I'm just
well, it's $3.20.
$3. Yeah, I'm just losing my mind at this. And I get to work and I'm like, okay, now I've got to run my 5K. And I am running the angriest.
Angry run.
Angry run. I'm
It's
just
the
like,
thing.
so we're running. You said we should run a thing called the Tan in Melbourne, which is sort of like through the Botanic Gardens, I think. And so I started running there, and I was so furious, and I was like cursing the name of the hotel establishment. I'm like, and the whatever the credit card providers, and I'm like, these dogs, they're gonna get like I was so mad. And then after about, I would say like 20 minutes, so I remember about halfway through the run, it all started to like evaporate from my brain. And I was like, oh, there's something about being outdoors and running in the fresh air, and you're around the trees and the greenery, and you realize that actually getting mad is a choice. You know, Michael, getting mad is in this instance, getting mad over $2 is a choice. And you know, you don't need to. You gain nothing from this. And I'm running that over in my head, and I'm not going to say I forgave the Novotel, but I'm at peace with them.
You're like, you know what? You're running a scam, and that will come back on you.
Exactly.
The
I'm like,
karma
I
bus.
can't.
The karma bus.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so I definitely, maybe physiologically that's just endorphins. Maybe it's also just the ability to not be distracted and tense, and it could also just be I'm not on social media for 25 minutes, you know?
Yeah.
But 5Ks took me about, I would say, walking and running took me about 40 minutes to do. And I think it was, broadly speaking, incredibly positive. And I guess unsurprisingly positive, because we all know running's good and we all should all do it. But yeah, that was my experience doing it. And the biggest change for me was not being mad at the hotel.
Yeah. That's quite good. I mean, look, it is a bit. I don't know if this is an apples for oranges comparison, because I feel like with marathons, you know, I feel like it's once you get past into that like 20-30K region where things probably start happening to your body and your brain. But yeah, I'd also ran the Tan this morning, which again is not. It's nowhere near a marathon.
No, it's 5Ks.
The Anderson Street Hill's pretty gnarly though.
Yeah.
Going up that hill's pretty.
Did Heartbreak Hill.
Yeah.
But I haven't run the Tan in a long time. I'm like you.
I'd never run it before. I got lost.
It's a circle.
Well, I wasn't sure because I couldn't. There's no map of it. So
It's tan. The track is tan in color. It is. You stick on the Tan and you go around the botanical gardens.
Is that why they call it the Tan?
It's a double. You get a double purpose.
I ended up at the observatory, so I think I went the wrong way.
Oh yeah, no, I don't know where you went.
Anyway,
You got bonus miles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
well, according to my phone, I didn't. But
So I have I'm quite a competitive person.
Lewis is, I would say, a competitive psycho. He's one of the most competitive people.
Yeah.
So how do you go then with a Tan? They have the signposts with the times.
They sure do.
Craig Mottram.
They sure do. So I used to run quite a bit. Like I would run most nights after work, and because I also less so these days. When I was younger, I used to have a lot of like seething rage at myself.
Okay.
I had a lot of I wasn't going out and starting fights, but I would often finish work and be like, "Yeah, you screwed this up. Okay. There's a lot of like internal anger, and running was the best way to just like get that out.
Yeah, right.
But then I just stopped running a little bit, and then last year Hingers and I were making a TV show, and I fractured my leg.
Oh.
And I haven't run since then. So I've done like exercises and weights, but I haven't really been for a run in a year, and just wanted to make sure it really recovered. Gave it that full year.
Prognosis is good.
Yeah. So I was like, but when I was running, because I think the challenge I have, even though I do love it, is that in my brain, I've got no excuse for being a bad runner. You know what I mean? Like for me,
what do you mean you've got no excuse for being a bad runner?
Well, I look like I should be able to run. I feel like people would always say to me, do you long distance run? It's
Tall
like
and skinny. Is that the stereotype? Is it?
yeah,
This
tall,
is such
skinny.
insane pressure to put on yourself.
Welcome, welcome every day.
What is your brain that you're
Yeah.
like? A couple of people have said, therefore I need to be the best at running.
Yeah. So I've always had that thing where I'm like, I've got no excuse for being a bad runner.
Maybe that's how I feel about tech support. You know, I feel like I should be able to reset your iPhone really efficiently.
Yeah, you do get angry about yourself when there's a computer issue that can't be solved.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
We all have our cross developed.
That's right. So I was like, I haven't run in a while, and then just as I was about to take off, I was like, oh, you know what? I might just open up my old running app, and which is sort of records your times, and that was a mistake. Because as I'm running along, and I've got some audio here from I was recording some of the moments. Now this was the moment where I saw what you were talking about.
I've gone. How far have I gone now? Time, full distance. I don't know. Probably a K. And I just ran past a marker that has the fastest times of the 10. It's like nearly 4K, 3.8 Ks or something. The fastest time is 10 minutes and 50 seconds. That's fucking outrageous. I did not need to see that at the start of the run.
So I'm starting already right from the start. I've got a few of these, so you can keep the headphones on. Right from the start, I'm seeing what is possible for the best in the world, and I can start to feel myself doing the comparison. I'm like 10 minutes 50. How fast would I have to go to do 4K? And
do you catch yourself and be like, Lewis, this is toxic, or
I was
are you too in the?
Well, the thing is, obviously, even at the fastest I've ever run, like I used to probably run at my absolute best when I was running really, really fast.
Yeah.
I would probably run about a 4-minute 30K for 7 or 8 Ks.
Awesome.
Which is pretty quick.
Yeah.
But again, like I've got the build for it. No excuse for I could be faster. Anyway,
Sorry to harp on this. When you
Yeah.
say no excuses, who do you think you're making excuses to?
internally for me,
So the only person who's holding you to this standard is you.
correct.
You don't think? Okay.
No
just
one
wanted
would-
to.
Look,
Yeah.
I don't want to interject, but there's a lot to unpack here.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot going on here. There's actually a thing. I don't know. I mean, Usain Bolt, the world's fastest human ever, over 100 meters. So some university students did a test to see how fast how do they make themselves equal Usain Bolt? What do they have to do? They tried running down the side of volcanoes. They tried getting towed behind a car, getting pulled, all these sorts of bits and pieces. They could not make themselves, no matter what they did, with any kind of aid, rocket skates like a Wile E. Coyote style, all of that kind of stuff. They couldn't do Usain Bolt over 100 meters.
Right.
So comparing yourself in this instance to Craig Mottram, the record holder of the 10, no offense,
No.
it ain't going to happen. Ain't going to happen.
You can't know that. This is what I mean. Like, probably not. But what if? I don't know for sure.
So you think, given the fact that you haven't run in a year,
Yeah.
you still think that you could step
No,
off
no,
the
no,
track?
no, no, no.
Busted leg.
Yeah. No, I'm not saying today. I'm just saying in general, I have a fairly toxic relationship with running and needing to be faster at all times. And
Again, because of pressure you've put on yourself.
no one cares but me. But for some reason internally, I have a thing where I'm like, if I'm running, you've got to be getting faster.
Did you ever post, when you had your running out, did you ever post your times?
Never.
Okay.
It was never, ever.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
When I was training for my first marathon, I didn't tell anybody
Mm.
that I was doing it for fear of if I don't do this, if I conk out halfway through or my
Yeah.
nipples explode or whatever, I don't want the shame of giving it a go and not telling anyone. And it wasn't until after when you're standing there with a medal, then I posted it.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, I obviously not doing a marathon today, but still some of the old, I guess, I don't know, problems started to kick in. As we should be able to hear that here. Hang on one sec.
Okay, my little app has just come through, and it's told me that I am just under 6 minutes per kilometre, and like 5:58. And if I slow down, I guess I'll tick over that, and that feels suddenly unacceptable to me. So I'm trying to pick up the pace. Okay, let's go.
So I shouldn't have opened the app. I shouldn't have opened the running app. It was a huge mistake. It took all of the relaxing capability out for me, and as soon as that thing clicked through, it was like it's like, you are 5:58 per kilometre. I was like, that's so close to 6. And I hadn't started the run thinking you need to be under 6. I just started the run being like, oh, I haven't used my leg in a while. Hopefully it's okay. And because it was so close, I'm like, if you slow down, you'll hit 6, and that'll be bad.
There's a couple of things here I think are really interesting. The first off is when you're running, particularly in a marathon with lots of people, and when you're running the 10, there's lots of people around you, some faster, some slower, all that kind of stuff. You don't know what they're dealing with. Someone might have, I don't know, come off a broken leg. Someone might be having problems at home. Someone might be a severe asthmatic. You don't know what that person's dealing with. So you don't know if they're fast for a reason or slow for a reason or whatever. Someone might be an elite athlete. Someone might be whatever. So when you see someone, it's like, I don't know what's going on in their world or whatever the case happens to be. They're just doing the best they damn well possibly can. And when I'm doing a marathon and I'm towards the back of the pack, I'm not at the front of the pack, I'm the same thing. Sometimes I've been really fit and been able to run a fast one. Sometimes not so much, too many cheeseburgers.
And you seem, I would say, more at peace with yourself than other people in the room.
You kind of have to be. I mean, you kind of have to be, really, at the end of the day, because we're our own harshest critics, aren't we?
I would agree with that, yeah. So, obviously, I lost my mind at some point. Like, my legs were jelly. I was like feeling a huge wheeze. My shoulders were starting to feel like jelly. And I've only run like 2.5K. Like, this is nowhere near marathon. But I'm just compared to, so I haven't run in a long time. Yeah. And so it feels like I'm really going for it. And I'm doing 6-minute Ks, which is, if you're a runner, garbage.
That's 10 on the treadmill for people who run on treadmills.
Garbage.
That's a warm-up. That's a warm-up speed.
Yeah. I'm.
Well, also, Lewis, you're calling yourself garbage. Like, I just know that people are going to be listening and be like, well, I do.
Oh, sure.
I do 5-minute. I do 8-minute Ks or whatever.
That's fine for them. Yeah, good. Go for it.
But again, I just need to translate for Lewis here that all of his anger is again focused entirely, and his judgment is focused entirely on himself.
100%.
Can I put that 6-minute kilometres into a different context for you?
Please.
What if I told you that you were going to do a marathon in just over 4 hours? Would you take that to the bank?
Yeah, that sounds pretty good.
That's a 6-minute kilometre.
Yeah, but I was dying at 2.5, Brian. I can't.
Here comes the asterisk,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, there's no way I could maintain that kind of pace for 42 Ks. I could barely maintain it for...
Can I offer you a tip, a running tip, if I may?
Love that.
Pick a nemesis.
Ah.
Someone that's running in front of you, make them your arch enemy, your villain, and by all means, you've got to do everything to gun them down.
Do you know that's so great?
For this, the arch nemesis can't be yourself, for Lewis. It can't be yourself.
100% can't be yourself.
Okay, just
There's no mirrors.
Very clear to
no
Lewis.
mirrors. Yeah.
Well, because actually, I do that. I often do that when I'm running, and there was a guy perfect distance, like 30 meters ahead of me, and I was like, and he was running at a similar pace. I'm like, fantastic, this is the guy. And at one point, for no reason, he just turned around and started running back in the other direction. And I'm like, oh, you were my nemesis. And then it was just back to old Lewis again. But anyway, then I was coming towards the end, and I hit a bit of a problem as I was coming to finish my lap of the tan.
Okay, I'm crossing my starting point. Well, I'm not quite at 4Ks, so I can't get a definitive split, so I'm going to keep going.
What?
So, because the tan is like 3.9 or 3.89 or something.
You've got to get a split.
And I was like, I don't know if I've got under 6 yet, because I'd have to... It wouldn't be official, if I'd stopped...
Hang on, is the tan's how long?
It's like 3.9 Ks.
Yeah.
I thought we had to do 5.
I thought we had to do a lap of the tan.
Oh, this is a nightmare. So what did you have to do then when you got right towards the end?
So I had to keep running.
For how long?
Well, not long, just to get to 4Ks. So then
So this is some sort of like everything's got to be even.
No,
Well,
it's to get your time.
now I need to know if I get under
Oh,
6.
for the app.
For the app, yeah.
Again,
yeah.
okay, right.
Now I'm just running for the app.
Yeah.
So I could say I am not getting the relaxing benefits of this run as it's happening.
What are you doing?
And this is a 4K.
While you were doing
let me just
this-
say this as well.
Yeah.
It was the most beautiful day in Melbourne. Sun was out. Birds were chirping.
Botanical Gardens, lovely.
It was
Beautiful
so stunning. Everything was suggesting just enjoy this.
Can I hate to, I hate to pull you up on this, Lewis, but
Okay.
you know that we've got the Brickman coming in
Sure.
to suggest that we do distance running.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
you know that.
Yeah.
And you know that he's suggesting distance running as a wellness benefit. 20 minutes into your run, when you're losing your mind, being competing with yourself, did any part of you think this isn't in the spirit of what Ryan McNaught would want from us?
No. That literally never crossed my mind. The only thing I could think about was if you get over 6 minutes a K, like
I'm loving this.
you'll
'cause
have dropped the ball for
This is
somehow.
awesome.
For some reason.
You are summarising running in a nutshell.
Yeah.
Everything that's going on there is running is a thing.
Hmm.
The maths of running, even trying to do mental calculations whilst you're running about your times, and if I do 15 seconds less this kilometre, what does that mean? All that kind of stuff. It's a thing.
Yeah.
so funny because for me, whenever I'm running, I'm just thinking about how this is going to benefit me creatively.
See, I still think that's toxic in its own way.
Yeah, but not as.
I just disagree.
I think you're actually more toxic than me.
Because you're just like, you're trying to, like, I'm trying to improve the run. You're
The
trying...
run itself is meaningless to me. The run is useful as a tool to better shape, like, my
Your
brain.
work.
Yeah, brain or work in
I don't think
45
that's
minutes
better.
time.
I think now you've said that out loud, you must realise that that's not better.
Oh, but the evidence is there. The evidence is clear, Lewis.
I don't think either of us have done this for the pure relaxation and joy of the run.
No,
Well, I've had a good time. Anyway, let's,
but genuinely, if you're a creative person listening to this, and I can't imagine there are any budding comedians out there who want to get into stand-up, I cannot recommend going for a jog enough as a way to clear your brain a little bit and then
100%.
do creative.
I forget the name of the comedian that we saw at the Melbourne Comedy Festival pre-COVID days. His whole show was done on a treadmill.
Oh, I think that was Mark Watson, a Welsh guy, maybe?
Unbelievably funny.
Yeah.
He did the whole thing on the treadmill. It was ace.
Yeah.
It was ace.
That's really, he was, yeah. I think it was Mark Watson. I remember that show. It was really
Yeah.
good. Anyway, that was my experience of the run. I did cross over the 4Ks.
Okay.
I don't know if it's important to know whether or not I beat 6, or whether we could just leave it.
Well,
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
For either of you,
Yeah.
does it fit into the category of silver bullet?
well, this is time for us to do our analysis, our review at the end.
Yeah.
Now, I would say, for me, a lot of the problems that I have in my life are stress and anxiety, right? I also have... I mean, you can feel free to insert your own problems you think I have listening at home.
Email them in.
Yeah.
silverbullet@abc.net.au.
But I would say at various times in my life, running has, if I am able to outdoor regularly run, it has incredible benefits to my life. If I can maybe twice a week or even 3 times a week go for a jog and then once a week go for a long jog, my life is 100 times better for me. For various reasons, life gets in the way of that, travel, et cetera, et cetera. It's hard to keep up with it. And for the last year, I've not really been doing that. Yeah, I love it. It's an absolute silver bullet for me. 100%.
There you go.
Yeah, and look, I would say this, because obviously you didn't bring in a marathon, it was distance running. So I think I mean, distance, you could argue whether or not what we did was distance.
Piece of string.
So you brought in distance running, not marathons, because that's obviously not what we've done. And you could argue whether or not the distance we did was distance running, but it wasn't a sprint. It had some distance to it.
Sure.
And I would say that I know that probably listening to me tell my story, you would think that man is A, unwell, B, too competitive, 3, riddled with self-loathing,
These are all
and
true.
4, he hasn't had a good time. But what you don't understand is when you are this way, it's actually really good to get that out in that format. Because it means that by the time I finish the run, I've condensed all of that kind of thinking, which my brain will do anyway, to that period, and I can kind of leave it behind. And I can almost like condense all of that hyper-competitive, kind of angry thing.
Lewis, I'm looking at your computer screen there. You've got the podcast charts open, and you've got Joe Rogan's name circled.
Yeah, we're coming for you, Joe.
He's never run a marathon, don't worry.
No, that's true. But yeah, it actually was really good to do, and it reminded me how much I love to run and how much I feel so much better after a run. Like we did it this morning. I feel great. My legs feel like strong and good. I feel like I walk taller.
Yep.
My head goes up. My shoulders go back. I was like I did some things to my lungs over a period of years that were not very healthy. I feel like I can breathe better. I honestly feel really good.
So would you say it's a silver bullet?
For me, it is a silver bullet.
Is this one of our first, all three of us think it's a silver bullet?
Yeah, this is a 3-chamber.
3-chamber
This
silver bullet.
probably
What a win.
upgrades it to a platinum bullet.
Platinum bullet.
And you know, it's funny. The thing about running is it can be so many different things to different people, right? It's universal. Even walking. It's not even. It's just any of that kind of physical activity like that. But for example's sake, I found. I've been in the same house for a number of years. I found the areas that I run getting a bit stale. I've trodden that footpath. I don't know how many times. I know every crack in that footpath now. So I'm looking for ways to do it. And then podcasts. So I listen to podcasts when I run, for example's sake. All different manners. Some days it might be something educational or learn something. Some days it's comedy. Some days it's learning about a silver bullet. Whatever the case happens to be.
Yeah.
And so you find ways to keep yourself going in different ways.
Yeah, that's interesting because I remember when I was running long distances, I used to alternate. I used to listen to podcasts for a while, and then I had to stop because my times were getting too slow. Because I felt like when I run to podcasts, I don't run fast enough.
Yep, 100%. And even your playlists, like your music playlists, I will play a certain playlist with a tempo or a beat to match what I'm trying to do for that run. Is that a speed run? Is that just a distance run or whatever? So, there's the math and the science behind the runnings. It's mind-blowing.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, Ryan, thanks so much for coming in.
Oh,
Yeah.
awesome to be
And
here.
you're
Thank
providing
Really
us with our
great.
first platinum bullet
Yeah.
of
Ooh,
the...
we've upgraded.
We
Yeah.
really have.
Hey!
Yeah. We've done it. We wondered if this day would come.
Yeah.
And all it took was doing the thing that everyone has always said is really good for you.
Who knew?
Yeah,
Who knew?
huh? Yeah.
North Korea next for us.
Yeah, good luck with that. Yeah, good luck.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
If you've enjoyed this, please follow our podcast wherever you get your podcasts, including on the ABC Listen app. And obviously, our official opinion here is that things sound better, even though the files are identical, things sound better through the ABC Listen app.
How could they not? If you do have a silver bullet you'd like to recommend or someone, a guest you'd love to hear on the podcast, silverbullet@abc.net.au. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll catch you next week.